Hey everyone, what's up? This is Simon from Devdectic back with a new authentication tutorial. So actually these tutorials with the login or authentication are the ones you click like the most. So I thought it would be a good idea to improve what we had in the past and build something better. So what we're going to do today is we will build an Ionic 4 application using Angular. We will integrate JSON Web Token authentication. So we will use kind of dummy mechanism a bit, but we will still have everything in place that you can copy for your own application. So let's get right into it. What I did so far is I started a tabs application actually this time because you wanted to see how to put a login page in front of a tabs, and no problem, we will do this. So then I went into the directory, I generated a few things. So I created the login page and the register page, like the basic things you're gonna need outside of the authenticated area. Then we got a service which will help us to manage the state in our application and do the request. And we got a guard which will be used to protect our pages. And for all of this, we also need the Ionic storage to keep track of our JSON Web Token. So to store it, of course, and then also the Angular JSON Web Token package simply to decode the token. So doesn't really need it right here, but it's kind of nice to have. So once you get all of this in place, we can continue with our app routing. Or actually, you can go here. I think you need to remove something like implements here because this would return an error. And then you can go ahead and you will see the beautiful tab layout right here. But we want to have a login page before this and then go into the tabs and make sure they're secure and all of this. So first of all, let's add the two packages. No, actually just the one package and an HTTP client module to our app module in order to use them. So HTTP client module and Ionic storage module, which we call with for root in our module. Cool, now we got this set up. Let's close this and go to the app routing. I think I said routing before, right? I don't know, but it's routing now. For me, it's now routing. So you can see actually with my current state, the base template contains the new Angular 8 syntax for the lazy loaded imports, which looks like this. This was the previous syntax, so I will just go ahead and make it like this in all the places. So load children, this is the login module, and then it's the login page module. Actually, the auto import is wrong in this case. Also, for the second one, we're gonna use register module, and then the register page module. There we go, everything now converted to the new syntax of Angular 8. What we want to change as well is our initial page is currently the tabs module. And we want the initial page to be the login. So let's use the empty page for the login and instead give this one the path members. So that means we can only access the tabs layout with members, with the path members / something. And also currently the tabs layout will be kind of destroyed, I would say. Because once you go there to members, I don't think it works. Oops, that's actually pretty wrong. Yeah, cannot match any segment because the routing information in the tabs router is now wrong. But we will fix this pretty soon, I guess, at least. But for now, well, let's fix it right now. Why not? Why not do it right here? So go to the tabs router, and this one contains the regular routing for tab bar. So we have a parent path tabs, and then we got all the children, tab 1, tab 2, tab 3. And we got two redirects. Actually, I'm not completely sure why we got two redirects in here, but we can remove one of them and we can cut the other one because we want to have it a bit different. So normally with this layout, you have it like tabs, tab 1. But of course, if you deploy your Ionic application as a website, this URL looks kind of ugly. So you also don't want to have it like members, tabs, tab 1. That's also pretty ugly. And we only want to have it like members / tab 1. Of course, tab 1 could still be something else. So then the inside area would be available under this members domain. And I think that's pretty okay. We could even have it different if it's just the slash and then the area, but that's a different story. So to come back to this means we put the redirect in front of everything else. The routing is always a bit complicated for everyone, and I saw you had a lot of problems in the past. So you can imagine the routing looking like, just like looking for a path. So if you come to a route like members/tab1, the Angular router will look in the most top module for the routing for the first part, which matches members, and this is this one. So then Angular will dive into the module that is specified here and will end up in the tabs router module. In here, we might now just have tab 1. And to make a redirect now successfully, we will just use every path that comes into here and map it to members tab 1. Actually, to make this work, we also have to remove this path because now there's basically nothing in front. Previously, when it was like this, you have to think about the path as tabs/tab1. So basically concat the strings that are in the path field. Now, as we remove this, there's nothing more in here. And we also specify that we always want to go to the tab 1 if we come in here without any further information. Okay, I will show you how this works in a second. For now, we're just pretty sure that the app still works. So we got the login page here. And to access our other pages, we could now go to members. And if we navigate to members, remember, Angular router goes into the routes, finds that there's a match for this path, and redirects to members/tab1, which then goes into this path. It matches so far fine, uses the children tab 1, and there we go. The whole tab bar is still available right here. If this was too confusing, just let me know in the comment and I will create another video on the routing and try to, I don't know, break it down completely even more. But so far, you can see that we got the tab bar available, and at the main path, we also got the login available. So this means we can hopefully continue with something more interesting. For example, our authentication. As I said, we want to build a JSON Web Token authentication. This means we perform a login, we get back a JSON Web Token, we store this token, and then later on in your application, you would sign or add this token to the header authorization field of your request. We won't do that part, but we will build the login flow, including protecting our pages. So doing the request later with the header is no problem at all. You can also, again, use the package we installed from Auth0, which is pretty easy. So let's go ahead using the Ionic storage to store our token. We might need the HTTP client module. I don't know why Siri is reacting to very different terms currently. Very strange. I don't know if it's spying on me. I guess it's anyway spying on me whatever I say. So never mind. Okay, what we need as well is the platform and the Angular router. The platform is used to make sure that we can use the storage, and the router is used if we log out to log us back in. Okay, two more things that we can declare up front are the JSON Web Token helper service that we can actually, oh, that was the wrong key. Okay, no author completion. So this package comes from auth or Angular JSON Web Token. If we don't add it to our app module, we have to use it like this. So the regular dependency injection is not working in that case. Also, defining a constant for the token key where you store your JSON Web Token makes sense, because otherwise you have a string like 10 times in the class, and that's really not a great way. Now the tricky part begins. In the past, like in this tutorial here, can I open this still? Like in this tutorial, we had problems because the first page that was shown was basically always shown, even if we directly navigated to something like members tab 1. Because there's a problem loading the token from the storage, checking the user, returning if the user is authenticated or not. But we can change this behavior a bit, or actually completely, by doing it different now. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a user observable. Let's use the type any. And besides that, also private user data, which is a behavior subject. So we used this in the past. A behavior subject is different from a subject because it has an initial value that you can always call, and you can always use user data dot user data dot get value. This dot user data. Come on, I just wanted to show you something. Get value to get the current value of the behavior subject. So that's pretty cool. The user is now used in our authentication guard. So this makes things a bit more complicated. Inside the authentication guard, we want to implement something that checks for the user, but also at the same time waits for platform ready, waits until we receive the token from the storage, and then says if a user is allowed to access a page or not. Because otherwise we run into the problems we had in the past. So with all that being said, we start with a function that I called load stored token. This function will simply be called right in the constructor, and this will set the user observable and implement all the logic for it. So this.user equals something. As I said, we need to make sure at this place that the platform is ready. And the platform ready, so this.platform ready returns a promise. And now things get more complicated with RxJS. We have to work with observables in here, or with promises, but not with mixed things. And observables work actually better in this case. So what we can do is say let platform observable equals from, and then this dot platform ready. What this does is basically converting a promise into an observable. Okay, so we now got an observable, and to observables we can easily pipe the result and transform it a bit. So in the first block, we're gonna also use something called switch map, and I don't know why I don't get any code completion for switch map. Usually I should get. So normally we have something like map in here, which just transforms the element. But with switch map, we can switch over to a completely different observable and subscribe to this, because we wanna return another observable, and this time using this dot storage dot get token key. Okay, I'm pretty sure I already got like 40% of you lost at this point. Make sure you got the imports for the operators right. This looks actually more complicated than it is. So this means we subscribe to the platform ready. Once the platform is ready, we get the token from the storage, and at this point we got the token. All of this from logic is just to convert the promise to an observable, and switch map is to subscribe to the new observable. Now at this point, as I said, we got the token from storage, and at this point it also becomes a lot easier, I would say. So if we got a token at this point, then we do something, and else we will return null. So if we got the token, we can decode it pretty easy using the helper.decode token, and then use our user data and call next on this. So that's a bit from the previous example. to store the current value in the user. Also, let's use decoded in here. There we go. All of this is just the logic for checking if a user is authenticated right in the beginning. So that's why we got all of the logic in here. Once we do a regular login, things are a bit different. Actually, let's do the login right after this because we're already in the flow. Perhaps you want to pass some credentials in here, like an email, password, string. So that's what most backends expect when you make a request here. Let's also say, for the sake of this example, that the credentials should be email Simon and password 123. If they're not this combination, we will also return null for the login. And again, you have to be consistent with your functions. So if you want to make this a bit more clear, you can always add the return type, and then let's say you return null now. Well, that's kind of not really an observable, but normally in your other class you will then get an error because this is not an observable, and then you can't subscribe. So you have to make sure that all your functions return really just one type, even if it's a bit over the top right here. So for the login now, let's assume you make a post request. I will just make a get request to whatever random user API. Why can't I make a, oh, okay. I use the HTTP client module. Of course, in your class, only use HTTP client. So you make a request to your backend, you perhaps send the credentials to it, and then you might also only want to take the first result and then end the observable. Then you might want to transform your data in some way. Perhaps the JSON Web Token is stored in some kind of field. In our case, I will just add this long string. You will see where I get this from. I actually lost the URL, but I think we can see it in the payload perhaps. This was a JSON Web Token online generator tool, and I used it simply so I can have a token and don't need a backend for this example, which was kind of genius. So our function now mimics the behavior of a real login, and we got a real token right now. And let's use the good old switch map once again. So at this point, we have our token from the previous step. We can use the logic we got right here. Login decoded. Let's use it like this. It is still red because we're not returning something that matches the switch map signature. And now we use our observable pattern once again. So from this dot storage set token key and the actual token. What we want to do is we want to make sure that the token is set to the storage before this function returns. So if we would have it like this just here and then return data whatever, the problem is that this returns and the token is not yet written to the storage, and then the Authentication Guard will fail and you will run really into challenging problems and you don't understand why it's not working. So by making sure that we use all the observables in all the right places, we're pretty sure that everything should work. Now, just two more functions. Actually, this was like the hardest part with all the observable stuff. To get a user, we can simply return our return this dot user data get value, as I've shown you in the beginning. And for the logout, let's just say this dot storage remove our token key. So now you see why I used the constant here, as we've used it in 4 places, I think. Then we can also use the router to navigate back to our initial URL, and also call this dot user data next with null to reset any data that was stored from the user. Okay, this was pretty challenging. Nothing changed so far in our application. I'm sorry for that, but implementing the JSON Web Token is kind of tricky, but I tried to make it as easy as possible with this example, and I hope you could follow the general logic. Now, our Authentication Guard will be used in our app routing module to protect the members area. So you can simply add a block, can activate, and then add the Authentication Guard in here. Now, whenever we try to access a URL or a page within members, this Authentication Guard will be called. And to make sure this works, we have to type implements can activate. And guess what? We will now implement the can activate functionality. And this will return an observable Boolean. So yeah, I should spell it correctly. There we go. No, not fine. Okay, I'm not returning a Boolean yet. Also, we need a constructor to inject our private auth service. So this one needs access to it in here. And we also need a few other things like the private router. Then we might need an alert controller to show that the user is currently not authenticated to access a specific route. And I think that's it. So now we can finally use what we implemented in here. So we want to subscribe to the user, which is loaded right in the beginning. So we say this.auth user subscribe. No, not really. We just want to pipe this one. Actually, the subscription happens in the can activate directly, so we don't need to subscribe here. We also just want to take this result one time. This is also the problem we had in the past. If you just take it one time, initially the value of the behavior subject is null. That's why you see for a short moment the starting page like you are not authenticated. But this will really wait for the observable and then take the result. And the first result is really that the user is authenticated if there is a storage token. So then at this point, let's also add a few logs here and there. In can activate user. Why are you not importing this stuff? I don't know. So if we don't have a user, we want to show an alert. And if we got a user, we will return true. Return. Oh, finally, the underline is gone. So in that case, as I said, we also want to display a little alert. So just go ahead with a simple alert, and there we go. So by now, we got this in place, and we should actually see that it's not yet working because maybe we have to also specify the route in here, which is the activated route snapshot. But normally, as we don't really need that information, we also shouldn't have to specify it. Anyway, let's try again with tabs. No, it's members, tab 1. And then we see cannot read property pipe of undefined. That is interesting. Do we got the right authentication service? Yes, we got. Actually, what is going on? My best bet in cases like this is property user does not exist on type auth service. Yeah, that's just wrong. If you see something that's obviously wrong, thanks Siri again. Most of the time there's a caching problem with the Ionic serve command. Okay, I think we're pretty much, we are at 25 minutes. I completely blew up this tutorial. So let's do a bit faster the login page. A bit faster means I copy in the code. This is just a basic example. You can find the code, like always, below this video. In here, we got the login button, we got the register button, and we got the email and password input. In terms of the logic, we again need the private auth service. in here we need a private alert controller maybe once again. And that's basically it. So the credentials, I will just specify the right combination right in the beginning to make sure that we can log in pretty fast. And then we might also need the private router. And now the login function looks like this. So we call the login from our authentication service. Remember what happens in the background. We make a post call, we get back the result, you would get back the authentication token, we fake it a bit, then we subscribe it, and at some point we get back either a result or null. If we get back null, like we're in the failed credentials, wrong credentials tree, no, bracket, whatever. Otherwise, we will navigate to /members, which will then, because we've set up our routing in the beginning, navigate to the right page. So let's see. Let's first of all make it wrong. Okay. Let's try register. Opens the register. Actually, for the register, I also got a short code snippet. Not really interesting. Not implementing the whole register, but make sure you got the back button in place for that page as well. And there we go. Now you can navigate to register and back. You got all the free logic outside available. If you now go to members/tab1, you see you're brought back to not really the login page, but have we? Yeah, actually we skipped that part. Good that we tried it out. So after the alert in the not allowed, we also have to navigate back the user to the initial page. So going to members, you get redirected, unallowed, not allowed to access that page. Now we log in and we are not allowed to access that page still. That's something that usually shouldn't happen. Yep, it's actually kind of tricky to decode or to debug things like this. But the missing piece was in our load store token, which is used in the Authentication Guard. In the success case, we are not returning true. So that's the magic we need to add in here. Now let's check. We're on the login. We log in and we see the login decoded with all the information I built into the JSON Web Token, and we're in the members area. So now I can also go to this tab and simply reload the page, and you will see no flickering of the login page, and we are immediately on this page. Now let's implement just two more things and then you can build your own system. Let's use the page 2 for this. And in here in our page 2, use an ion view will enter to load our user data. So inject the authentication service, auth service, and then in here, let's have a user just to show some user data. This.user equals this auth get user. Remember, this will return the value of the behavior subject, and also a logout perhaps, so we can test this behavior as well. Logout. Remember, logout also will bring us to the next page. In terms of the layout, let me also just do this real quickly. So just a card with some content and the logout button. And now we can dive a bit into this. So we see our information. Let's log out. I will just refresh this, and now I will try to go to members, tab 1. And because we're now not getting a token from the storage, we get unauthorized, we are back here. I can just go to members. It will not work because all of them are protected. I can still go to register. This is a free one. Actually, there's, let's just not do this. So the login, if it fails, we get wrong credentials. And if it works, we are brought to the tab 1 page. We can go to tab 2 and we see the information decoded from a JSON Web Token. And when I hit reload, we see also the can activate is immediately called, but it waits until we get the token from the storage. It is decoded, the information is stored in the behavior subject, and we can read that information. So This was a very long tutorial, but I tried to explain the JSON Web Token authentication mechanism as best as possible for you, including the top bar navigation and the different pages. So please, if there's still anything unclear, just let me know. I'm happy to create something else on this, perhaps also with a real registration and a Node or Nest.js server. Just let me know what you would like to see. I'm always happy if I can help you and exactly create what you are looking for. So if you enjoyed the video, please also give the like button below, subscribe to the channel, come back for Thursdays vlog episodes every week, Tuesday tutorial, Thursday vlog. Check out my Ionic Academy to help you with everything Ionic, like this, but also many more tutorials, courses, and everything you need to learn Ionic. So I would love to see you in all the places. Leave a comment below. I would love to see your feedback. So have a great day, build a great JSON Web Token authentication, and happy coding, Simon.